Hello and welcome to part 13. In this part, we'll hash the password provided by the user once he creates his account. So here in our /users endpoint, where the account creation happens, we'll hash the password before saving it to the database. So in order to do this, we'll be using the Bcrypt package. Now there is a very similar package to Bcrypt, which is named Bcrypt Js. Now the difference between the two is that one is built with C and the Bcrypt Js is built totally with JavaScript. So clearly here, for performance reason, we are using the Bcrypt. It's much faster than the Bcrypt Js. But in case you are using isomorphic JavaScript, where your script needs to run on the NodeJS and the browser, in this case, your only choice is to use the Bcrypt Js. So first, let's install the Bcrypt package, npm I bcrypt. Alright, then we requires it here in the file, constant bcrypt equal required. And before saving the user to the database, here before the calling the handle new user with the user, we'll await for bcrypt.hash. Here we provide to it the user.password, and we'll provide to it a salt. Now the salt here create to the encryption some bits to make it unique. So if two passwords are the same, the hash of this password will be different. This is why we provide the salt. Now the result of this operation will be the hash, and we'll store this hash into user.password. Alright, and we can then save the user that now has the hashed password instead of the one provided by the user. Alright, so now we can give it a try. Let's create a new user. First, let me run the backend server, npm run dev. Then the front end with yarn start. Alright, and if I create now a new user and save, okay, this email is already in use, so let's use 3. Alright, now if I go to my database, I can see that I have a new user here with the email I just saved, and the password has been hashed. Alright, so this is it for hashing a password. Next, the rest of this video will be refactoring, or will be cleaning the code here in the app.js, especially for the error handling. First, in the handle new user, alright, we'll send with the user the created at field and the is email verified field, which by default will be false. So here I will add some property to this object along with the user data. So I'll add is email verified, which will be by default false. Then I'll add created at, which will be new date. Alright, now here for the validation error that we are sending, here we are using from our previous video, we have created a custom validation error, and we are using it to throw a custom error. And here in the catch, we are handling it. What we will do, we will handle it here in its place instead of throwing an error. Here, if there's an error, we'll return res.send 400.status 400.send the errors. We'll send it in an object, and the errors, alright, here where we are building it, we are creating an array that contain each error as an item. What we will do, we will make it into a string, and instead of the push, we'll concate, alright, and we'll separate them with a comma and a space. So the list of errors will be a string instead of an array. So we'll do this for the rest of the checks. Then we'll reduce here the string of the error of the password to wrong password format. We don't need to explain to give all the details. Here we make it else if. So instead of else, then another if. The same for the is password. And since we have only one line, we can remove the accolades. Now here, as I said, now the errors become a string, which we'll send here in case there's an error. So we'll get rid of this line here, we don't need it anymore. And concerning this this condition here, we can simplify it by checking the error.code. If it's equal to, alright, in case it is equal to 11,000, then we'll send the error. Next, we'll be moving the request handler function. This one, we'll be moving it to its own function. So I'll copy this whole function here. Alright, and I'll create constant handle request, which will be equal to this function. Alright, now as you can see here in the code, we are using where it is here, ZDB. Now ZDB is provided by a wrapper function to the app.post. So what we will do here, we will wrap this function with a function that will receive ZDB in the parameter, and we'll send the handle request as the second parameter to the post, and we'll provide to it the DB. Alright, which will return a function that has the signature of a request, that contains the parameter request and res. Now we have the handle request in a separate function, similar to the user saving to the database. So now I'll change this name also to, instead of handle new user, create user, which is more meaningful because this function handles the saving of the user object to the database. So now we have the database logic in a function, and you can see here it is like a controller here. It represents a controller or an action in a controller, which is in its own separate function. So this will allow us in a later video to refactor our code to divide the controller and the business logic or the database logic in its own files. So consider this as a preparation for the future refactoring. Next, here in the isEmail, we are creating a separate constant. Now we don't need a constant here. We can copy the regular expression and provide it directly to the match. So we get rid of this constant. Similar way to the is password. Alright, then we'll remove here the where we are requiring the validation error, the custom validation error. We are not using it anymore, and we can delete the errors folder. We won't be using custom errors. Alright, so I guess here it is. So that's it for this video. The next video will work on the validation. We'll be using the Joy library to validate our inputs. Then after this video we'll be working on the email verification. So once we create a new user, we'll send him an email so he can verify his email account. Alright, that's it. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.